Moved.
Second.
Moved by Lindsay, seconded by Victor. Any recommended changes? I have a couple changes. We need to add approval of change order number 3 for the police department reuse project. And that's gonna be item 8, Charlie. And a new agenda item 8, Foxtrot, replacement of the sewer manhole on Main Street. Those were requested by Kathleen. Any other changes? Hearing none. All in favor of the amended agenda signify with their hands up. Okay. Next is approval of the minutes of our August 11th, 2020 regular select board meeting.
Moved. Second.
We'll let Dan. We'll let Vern choose.
Any requested changes to that? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes as drafted, signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Next is citizen comments, and it's an opportunity to address issues that are not otherwise included on the agenda. For those that have tuned in, just a reminder that you have to let Chris English is tending the mic, and Heather is watching it. So you need to give a thumbs up, is it, Heather, or a hands up?
Use the raise hand feature, which should be in the lower right hand. Oh, I see one hand up. Mr. Olinick has his hand up.
Okay. So Chris, I think you have to let him speak. If you could let Michael speak.
You can unmute your microphone now if you wish.
Okay, thank you. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Olinick. I've been a Middlebury resident for 50 years. Very thankful for living in a community whose members have made great personal sacrifices to minimize the impact of the coronavirus on our town. We have been slowly and carefully inching our way back to a more normal life by wearing masks in public, maintaining social distancing, and avoiding gatherings of more than a very few people. We fear that the reprieve we have had from this pandemic may well end when thousands of students from across the country converge on Middlebury College and the town. We certainly appreciate the planning efforts that the college has made to deal with this influx of young people, but many come from various hotspots, and the college's plan is based on unrealistic assumptions about the expected behavior of 18 to 22-year-olds. Along with 64 other current and former employees of the college who know our students well, I signed a letter to the college administration, which also appeared in the Addison Independent, urging a change to remote learning with a bare minimum of students in residence. We talk candidly with our students all the time. Almost all uniformly agree that masks, social distancing guidelines, and travel restrictions simply will not be sufficiently followed. If only 1 or 2% of the students don't follow a rigorous quarantine at home, or inadvertently pick up the virus on their travel to campus, or have a false negative test on arrival, or visit friends in other states on the weekend, or fail to stay 6 feet apart after several drinks at a party, then an epidemic can easily arise that will overcome our town and especially its small hospitals facilities. The initial group of Middlebury College students arrived just a week ago. Although relatively few in number and described as our most responsible student leaders, There have already been numerous violations of the quarantine protocols reported by townspeople and merchants, as some students have ignored rules requiring them to remain on campus. We understand that there are some students who do not have home environments that support their learning remotely, and that others cannot complete senior projects without access to special resources only available on the campus. We would certainly support having a group of such students in residence as other colleges have done. In our opinion, the only moral solution is for Middlebury College to teach almost all its classes online this fall and to take the necessary funds from its endowment to keep everyone employed. It can well afford to do that. It is the best way to guarantee the health, safety, and well-being of our community. We urge the Select Board to attempt to persuade the college to rethink its plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak before?
Brian, there is a hand up by an E. Davis.
Okay,
Okay, your microphone is
there.
unmuted.
Hi there, my name's Erin Davis. I'm a resident of Weybridge, part-time faculty at the college, and 9-year resident of the area. I want to ditto a lot of Michael's concerns. And I want to thank you for making time for our comments. So one thing that I just wanted to mention is that a lot of people are referring to this as an in-person semester at Middlebury, but calling it in-person is a bit of a misnomer in that, yes, there are students here, but they don't need to be. It was reported by the campus newspaper earlier this month, I think, that over 50% of faculty have chosen to offer their courses completely online in the interest of health and safety. And more than 80% of the courses available at Middlebury this semester have an online component. And anecdotally, that is a choice that faculty are making because they anticipate having to go online at some point. So essentially, over 2,000 students are returning to the community to take online courses or courses that could be taught online if push came to shove. I agree. So I think that's important for everyone to remember. I also wanted to mention that I agree with Representative Ruth Hardy, who said in her recent letter that the educational priority of this community should be our K through 12 students, for whom in-person learning is frankly way more important to the well-being of our society than of the Middlebury students who are coming back. Apologies to any Middlebury students listening. The college choice, despite all of their diligent preparations and despite the tuition hike and pay freezes they've implemented to pay for their preparations, puts the community and the local educational priorities at risk, and it's simply not worth it. And one final thing on a personal note, I'm expecting a baby in November and hope to deliver safely at Porter Hospital, where I've received amazing healthcare in the past. And thank you to anyone listening who is a part of that hospital staff at any level. Anyway, you may have read that pregnant women are 50% more likely to end up in the ICU if they contract COVID-19, and COVID-19 has also been demonstrated to contribute to preterm birth. So in addition to increase the risk of preterm birth. So in addition to putting the local educational resources for our K through 12 population at risk, I'm also a member of the community who's at medical risk, and the priorities of this college are just misaligned. And I similarly to Mike, urge the Select Board to urge the college to rethink its plans so that they are more in service to the health and safety of the community. There's more that they could do. Thank you.
thank you, Erin.
Brian, there's another hand up. Chris, do you see that person? Sepi Alavi.
Okay, your microphone is now unmuted.
Sepi?
Yep, my name is Sepi. And I'm just kind of adding to the chorus of all of the people asking you guys to urge the college to rethink their plans. I think I might be in a fairly unique position here. My husband teaches at the college. I do some J-term stuff, and we've been on sabbatical this past year. And we were in DC, so we rode out the first basically 5.5, 6 months of this pandemic in a city where numbers are high, cases are flying around, and what has managed to happen here is amazing and unusual, and I think that it's frankly reckless of the college to be jeopardizing the kind of bubble that's been made here. Yeah, I think it's reckless, and they're doing it for economic purposes. This is for no other reason than money, and they are putting their bottom line above people's lives. I mean, I think a lot of people here don't know very many people or anybody that has contracted COVID. I happen to know of 9 people who contracted COVID, including 3 family members, and it's not a joke. And I think that they're playing with the safety of people's lives in this small town, and medical community will not be able to handle an actual outbreak combined with UVM and Champlain. It's all, I literally don't understand where they're expecting people to get medical care from once Porter and UVM are overrun. I would highly suggest that we try and keep at least Addison County safe if we can. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sepi. Is there anyone else, Heather?
Hang on, I don't.
Victor, I just want to know if there's any other.
Well,
Michael Olinick has his hand up again. I don't know if you want to give him another opportunity.
Not really. I want to move the meeting forward. So if there's no new people to speak, if we were in person, we usually give one opportunity to speak, and then we go to the board. So Victor has something to say to this. Victor?
well, I share the concern. There was an egregious event that took place that we all read about. And although I think the college has a good plan in place, what I'm concerned about is how strictly they enforce it. And I'm skeptical of that. And I must say concerned. I mean, I'm 88 years old, and I recognize the health dangers. It's a matter of life and death. And I think there is some deep concern if the college brings the students back and keeps them on campus, but there are students who live off campus whose behavior seems to be in many ways not controlled. And I think these are matters that need to be seriously reconsidered. And I hope if the college decides to remain with their present plans, that strict enforcement is absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to this? I guess I would just say that we hear the citizen concerns. We had and continue to have concerns to make sure that we're keeping our community safe. That was why we asked the college to present to the select board and the community their plan. There's a lot of medical support to that plan. And, you know, we're kind of in a position where it is the college's call, but based upon all of the medical advice, we're hearing a lot of what ifs type of advice. But you know, the college was one of the most responsible schools in the nation, and shut down and sent their students home early. if there was to begin this, if they started seeing cases on campus, I believe the college will do the right thing and move the students out of our community. And so, you know, I have a high degree of trust that the college will do the right thing, that the Porter Medical Center would not have given them the green light if they didn't feel that they were capable of supporting their plan. And with that testing, they should be identifying and quarantining and contact tracing very early on before it gets to be what I'm hearing is fears of a pandemic in our community. And I don't think you can keep cases totally out of here when you bring 2,000 more students in. Certainly, they had, I checked before the meeting, I think it's 379 students have returned to campus, and they've all tested negative on their first test. And they'll be doing a second test after 7 days. That information is all available for the community. I think the college also provided an opportunity for professors who maybe were in the high-risk group to teach remotely if that was needed to preserve their health. To the point of the college's sense that they have a plan that will work, the president is going to teach an in-person class. So I think, you know, there's a lot of considerations. We've had one of our biggest fears as the summer started was that we were going to have a big outbreak as we saw all of the out-of-state plates coming through our community. And they're eating in our restaurants and spending more time in the stores than these students will be doing. And we didn't have that happen. We're just at 6 in Middlebury, and all of the communities around us are in the 1 to 5 as far as total positive tests since the beginning. I feel that the select board listened to and has a sense that the plan is a very responsible plan and needs to provide the opportunity for the college to succeed. I think it's critical for not just the health of our college, it's critical for the health of our community that we work together as a community and do everything that we can to protect the community, but also to ensure the economic well-being of the community. And you can't keep everybody out of our community and have this community continue to thrive. So I guess the one last thing is I know there's been some reports. What we're finding is that the reports are sometimes overstated. One of the big parties was a group of 5 kids that were listening to music. This is with the police, Chief Hanley's team looking into it. And we had a report of college students shopping in the co-op, and then pretty soon afterwards a report of a young individual that was living in our community being harassed inside the co-op and was not a legitimate, was not a student. So I think we have to be careful. We need to be respectful of others. You know, it's kind of a sign of the times. We're talking about this prejudice that exists in our society. I think it exists in many ways. And right now we're being quite prejudiced because of some of the things that we see. I think we owe it to these students. I have 2 students myself, and they are not doing well learning virtually. They need, when you talk complex subjects, sciences where you need to be in to be able to develop and grow, you need to be in a lab environment. That doesn't happen at home, especially not with somebody, you know, I'm not a science major. So I can't mentor that. I can't help teach that. And so I think the select board made the decision to support the college when they briefed us, and we need to allow that plan an opportunity to succeed. I think if they recognize that there are issues, that the college will make the right call. So with that, we're going to move on to approval of first class and third class liquor license application and outside consumption permit for Boho Robinson Incorporated, doing business as Swift House. Dan?
I'd like to take a minute and introduce Matthew Robinson. Over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to sit with him quite a bit and talk, and we've become friends. And I want to introduce him to you and the select board, and I'm excited about Matthew and his partner Serena moving to town and being citizens in Middlebury. So with that, I'm going to recuse myself from any of the discussions.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, Matthew. Is your speaker on, Matthew?
You're muted.
There we go. No?
He's not muted.
See if his volume's turned down.
No.
Well, Matthew, you may have to find... Well, I'm sorry that we can't chat with you here, Matthew, but I'm going to go ahead and go on with the. Matthew is like Dan said, is buying the Swift House in, and we're welcoming him to the community. But he's asking for approval of a first-class beer and wine and third-class liquor license application and an outside consumption permit. The required public safety inspection has been completed, and the inspection report is in your packet. He's attending in person to show us that he wants to be a part of the community, and he has the ability to answer any questions, but maybe Dan could answer questions if anybody has a question.
Well, I know he can speak, so can he call in? I don't know if he can call in.
We'll do this at a later board meeting.
Okay.
We'll practice ahead of time. So, pleasure of the board.
Well, Matt, welcome to town, and glad to see the Swift House is going to be continuing. Yeah, everybody, thumbs up for Matt. Glad to see the Swift House is going to continue on with its proud tradition, and look forward to meeting you and Serena, as I know the rest of us do. So I'm going to move to approve the application for first and third class liquor licenses for Boho Robinson Incorporated.
Second.
All in favor, signify with a thumbs up. We've got 6-4 and 1 abstention.
And as a follow-up, I move to approve the outside consumption permit application for Boho Robinson Incorporated.
Second.
All in favor, signify with thumbs up. Again, 6-0 and 1. All right, Matthew, you got the green light.
He'll have to work on technology, but he's pretty technologically savvy, more so than me. So, but this gives me something I can tease him about for the next few weeks. So
there you go. Okay, so we'll have to stop by and enjoy that permit a little bit at your place and have an opportunity to meet you. We'll see you later, Matthew. Next, joining us should be Chief Hanley, and to talk about first is regular emergency management update, and maybe some comments on what you heard, Chief, from concerned citizens in the community.
Brian, can I interrupt for a sec? Sorry, maybe Chris was already going to.
Go ahead, Heather. Sorry.
There is a question from Aaron Davis, wondering if any other board members were interested in weighing in on the public comments other than the lecture we received from Mr. Brian Carpenter. Would you like me to reply? I know Victor expressed his concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one else on the board spoke. Did anyone want to?
I had a thought, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, just making sure you could hear me. I'm just wondering if we, in the short term, could potentially meet more frequently, or with Lori or Sue. I know we meet quarterly, but this is a time when I think town college communication could be beefed up a little bit. And then my other question is, so we're getting reports from the, from the college and responses, but are we posting those somewhere where the public can see them in a timely fashion?
The chief, we actually are meeting weekly now, and we do this the mice where and Chief's in it, Kathleen's in it and I'm on, but it's with the college also, the superintendent of the schools, and the college's team, and sharing information, making sure that we know what's going on and understanding the plan and any changes to the plan. Chief is our conduit. He's our emergency management director, and he's putting out that information in his daily bulletin, anything that's pertinent to the community. I think he's talked about some of the findings that he had from reports in that. The college has got a new reporting mechanism that's available for people who see what they think are issues with the student conduct, and maybe Chief could speak to that. I'm not sure, but that they were supposed to be standing that up this week. Our meeting's tomorrow, so I won't find out the exact details of that till tomorrow.
So if it's okay with the board, I would choose to mark this question answered live. Does anybody have any objection? Okay.
I don't, but I want to make sure we're answering the question.
It sounded like she was looking to make sure that all of the rest of the board had an opportunity to comment on the public comments. Looks like Dan has his hand up.
Well, if they're trying to hear more voices, I share their concerns. I understand their concerns. I have the same concerns and everything. But I think the college has done a great deal. They've been proactive on this since the beginning with releasing the students early. I think they've got a plan that's worthy of trying, and so far, it's this week is the proof. All the students are coming back the rest of this week, and I'm for giving them a chance, and I'm sure that if anything starts to turn south, that it'll be addressed very quickly, and immediate action will take place against any violators. And if we start seeing cases, then I'm sure that the college will take the appropriate action to shut down again. So I feel comfortable where we're going. I have concerns.
Yeah, I guess I could add, just that I share the concerns very much so. But I also feel like, the college put a ton of effort into this plan, and it's upon us. I guess I kind of agree that they should be given the opportunity to to do things the way they would like. You know, for me, and that's why I was making sure that people understood where to see those responses. For me, the devil is in the details of how they're responding to students when there are violations, and how quickly we're getting that information. And I think that the college needs to be sure that that is coming through to the town very clearly and very quickly. So that if anything, you know, as these concerns come up, they're being addressed and people are seeing that it's being addressed. And I think if they fail to do that, then we will have a problem. That's it for me.
Just a question, clarification on that, Lindsay. You feel that they owe it to us to report how they deal with those violations, or just that they have dealt with them?
I don't think it's fair for them to disclose anyone's personal medical information. But just to be clear that, you know, I do think if there are, you know, cases, we need to know that there are cases. If students are quarantined, we need to know that there are students being quarantined.
Okay. And that daily, supposedly, you know, that daily, the report will be updated daily. The one that's on, that you can click onto on their site, the COVID tracking report.
Kathleen, do we have a link to that on the homepage of the Town of Middlebury website? And is that something we could consider?
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah, that's where I was going with is
Okay.
it on the town?
All right.
Brian, I don't see any more questions or hands up right now.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to say, Heather?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, though.
Okay. I didn't mean to lecture anyone. I thought I was trying to give what I think it came out of the select board's discussion and deliberations over this, and we had already green lighted the college, and so that was where I was at. Is Chief with us now? Hey, Chief.
Hello, with the click of a button, here I am. Wish everything were that easy, huh?
Yeah.
We are the hub for giving away the masks that came from the health department, and we've sent a number of them to the business community. Farah, did you get yours yet?
Yeah. Karen dropped it off yesterday. Thank you.
Karen Duguay is our liaison, and she's taking care of that. We gave her the masks on Friday. We're continuing to give them out. We've advertised now that people can just walk into the police station and we'll give them a mask. So they're going out. I want to get some to the child care places to supplement whatever they have. In case they get a child that's in there that soils a mask, they've got something to give them. So we're still working on that. We've reserved some for that. But I've got probably 1,500 more masks here that are available to the public should they need them. And we'll continue to do that. Regarding the campus issues, in a bulletin I put out Monday, I put in some links so people could, if they got this bulletin, it's how they can track some of the stuff that's going on at the college. In tomorrow's bulletin, I'll have a few more links that Sarah sent me this evening that we'll also post. So people can click on those links and find out what's going on. There's a link that has the testing. If you just go to the college page, they have a COVID-19 page that lists all these different things, at least last I checked a few days ago. But we'll continue to follow that. We met this afternoon with a number of folks from the college. They are putting together compliance teams. They're going to be going about the college generally between 2 in the afternoon and 2 in the morning, making sure things are copacetic and the rules are all being followed. I've assured them that we would work partnership with them if we have issues off campus, and that we would report them immediately and they could deal with them immediately. Pretty confident, having worked with them, that they've got an infrastructure in place to deal with this. That doesn't mean every student has a leash on them, or him or her, but that means that they are taking this to great lengths to deal with this. From the emergency management perspective, I can't chase away a hurricane or a flood that's coming or a plane crash or a train falling off the track. The best we can do is put structures in place to mitigate the effect of those things, and that's how we're handling this as well. I can't make the students go away. I didn't bring them in. But if there is going to be a problem, we've got to be in a position that we can mitigate whatever that problem is and work closely with the college, maintain constant communication with them to deal with this. And I think I've been very impressed so far. Sue and I have corresponded almost every day. The folks in public safety, Matt Curran, and some of the others have been going back and forth, putting these structures in place. Going back to June, when we knew that these students could possibly be returning, which is when we started working on this issue. And a couple of things that I've asked the college to do, they're more than happy to put in place for us, especially the communication links and the immediate contact, so that, you know, as things used to happen in the past, if we had an issue with a student, we'd get a report and we'd send it days later, and then they'd get it and they'd send it days later. This is not going to happen this time. I wanted some assurance that if we discover something that's awry, that causes a public safety health danger to folks in town, that it is dealt with immediately at that time. And that's how we're progressing with this. You know, after they're here 31 days, by law, they are residents. So as far as the general governor's orders, no longer really apply as long as they follow those orders. And the off-campus orders of the college, again, or they can deal with the stuff on campus, but we've got two different levels here. But I've told them I would continue to provide them information and anything we got. With respect to the two party complaints we got, both we determined were unfounded. One was across the street from me. I was gone all day. When I got home, there was nothing going on. There was no noise or anything. There wasn't anybody over there. So I don't know where that came from. Again, it was a third party complaint we got days afterwards, which I just forwarded per protocol to public safety to let them know. Another one on Shannon Street, report of a loud party and drinking and carrying on. Two officers were there immediately and found nothing. They didn't hear a sound from outside. They knocked on the door. The 5 student residents that were in that multi-unit building were just sitting around playing music and things. There wasn't any big party. So we were happy with that. As the students came into their off-campus lodging starting in May this year, we paid visits to just about all of them. And it gave them the information on the governor's orders, what the expectations we had as a community. And we have not had a single complaint, a single substantiated complaint from any of them, whether it's the Seymour Street or Washington Street or Shannon Street or Weybridge Street, any of the places where they're living off campus. We've not had any issues with that at all. So we're off to a good start there. But again, just like we deal with any kind of emergency or storm coming, we stay prepared, we stay operational, and we'll keep our foot on the gas.
Questions of Chief? Just so you know that what he talked about as far as what the college is instituting with the patrols, that was something that came out of a seminar or webinar that Kathleen took, and the conversation between her and Chief Hanley shared with the college, and the college picked up on that idea. And it's another level of oversight that they instituted at the request of the town, or the idea of the town. And so they're very receptive to those opportunities for smart things that they can do.
I might add that they have reached out to a number of the businesses in town and have asked for cooperation in helping them enforce their internal orders about students not venturing off campus at this time. And they've gotten a pretty good response. There's one or two that felt that they really want the students there for business, so they may not report things. But generally, they've received some assurances that they will participate in this.
Thank you, Chief.
Brian, there is one comment in the question and answer from Sepi. Perhaps one thing we can require the college to do is inform faculty if one of their students tests positive. As it stands, they are maintaining that they will only inform faculty if they think they are within 6 feet of the professor. We know by now that science of 6 feet doesn't hold indoors. Since there really isn't a question there, I'm just going to mark that as answered live. Okay?
Okay, we'll share that idea, Sepi, with the college team tomorrow. Okay, any other questions of Chief?
She has asked another question, can we request it? And I think the we can say that was answered live and that we will bring that to the meeting tomorrow, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If I could just make a quick comment to Chief Hanley, thank you so much for your wonderful emails. They really are a pleasure to read, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Chief, I rarely read Front Porch Forum, but I read it one day in the last few days, and there was somebody lavished praises on you, and they're well deserved. And so your ability to keep us informed, your ability to be spot on and bring us things that we need to be more productive in our daily lives around this COVID scenario, and then your ability to add a little lightness. It's great. Kathleen and I talked today that when this is all said and done, we're going to have an issue because people are going to you and Jim Gish's thing for the town news, and I think it definitely helps. It helps with our town, helps bring people together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we need to bring Chief Shaw into the meeting. Was Nick needing to leave? Anybody know what happened to Nick?
I think he got knocked off somehow. He didn't say anything.
Huh. I don't have a text from him either. Chief, you there?
I am.
So I believe that you and Leroy are gonna present to us here.
We are. Our committee is prepared this evening to present their findings. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just take a minute to introduce the committee. Thank you for your time. Our committee consists of Captain Leroy Graham, Captain Jeff Carpenter, Lieutenant Donald Patterson, and absent tonight is Chair Tim Porter. We're here tonight to seek your approval for the purchase of a new Class A engine to replace our oldest engine, which is now 24 years old. You've all received a copy of the committee's work and recommendation. Jeff would like to walk you through a short PowerPoint presentation through the process.
Yeah, you can tell her when or they've got that.
I believe, are you ready, Kathleen, for us to do this?
I believe we are, Chief. I've got the first slide up.
Okay.
They're controlling it.
Okay. All right, so if you click, please. Oh, we're doing this. All right. Okay, so here's the outline of the presentation. So quickly, we'll walk you through our process. Then we'll talk about assessing the specification compliance. So we had a bunch of specifications that we sent to vendors, and we'll talk about how well they complied with those specifications. We'll talk about how we scored the proposals that we received. And then we'll get to the heart of this, which is the actual scores and the bids and the discounts and the net bids. And from that, we'll be able to generate our recommendation. We have a table on the finances, and then we'll give you a little bit of time to ask us questions if you have any. So if we move to the next slide. So starting in November of 2019, we compiled a list of specifications. And there's sort of three kinds of items that were on these specifications. The first kind are things that continue to suit our needs. These are things that are specific to rural firefighting. These include a mid-mount pump, which is good for visibility, a large 1,000-gallon tank, and because of where we are situated in the United States, a stainless steel body. And we also wanted to look at items that reflect and anticipate the change to our missions over the expected 25-year life of this new pumper. And so we want to be able to do more hazmat scenes with a smaller crew. So we're talking about a hopper for hazmat absorbent. We want the ladders lower than they were before because, as you can imagine, as we all get older, they're harder to grab from the top of the truck. And then we really wanted to drill down on items that we deemed as requirements for safety. So this is going to include airbag and rollover protection, an automatic hose bed cover so nobody's up there slipping off it trying to cover it, and a powerful light tower. So this resulted in a spreadsheet containing 121 specifications. Each one of these specifications we ranked on a 1 to 3 scale. 3 is ranked as essential as stated. So an example of that is hot dip galvanized frame rails. 2 are required but fulfillable by an appropriate substitution. Something like a Jacobs engine brake might be substituted with a Cummins engine brake if necessary. And 1 are useful additions but not required. And this is, for example, something like storage under the officer's seat. So if we move on to the next slide. In the first round, we invited every conceivable manufacturer to formulate a proposal for us. This consisted of us contacting 10 dealerships that represent 13 manufacturers. These are all the manufacturers that we solicited proposals from in the first round. If we go to the next slide. In the second round, we actually received 4 complete proposals and worked with the salespeople to update the proposals to conform to our specifications as much as possible. So the 4 are Smeal from Snyder, Nebraska, HME from Wyoming, Michigan, Rosenbauer from Lyons, South Dakota, and Toyin from Breda, Iowa. These are the 4 that submitted complete proposals. And I will say that we, let me put it colloquially, hammered on these salespeople pretty hard. Because in the end, we knew exactly what we wanted, and we kept going back to these people over and over again to make them, if possible, comply with our specifications. So if we go to the next slide, please. Once we got final bids from these manufacturers, we met as a committee to evaluate the 4 bids. And so what we did is we compared each bidder's proposal to our 121 item specification list. For each item, we checked their compliance and listed page numbers for our reference. And one thing that I want to make sure everyone understands is that in consultation with the chief, we decided to evaluate these proposals before we knew what their final prices were. We felt that it was important to actually decide which is the best truck for our needs before we knew what the cost of each of those trucks were. If we go on, please. This is how we scored the proposals. So we went item by item and assessed how well each manufacturer fulfilled the specification. We used another 0 to 3 scale here. So 0s were assigned to bids that simply failed to fulfill the requirement, the specification. 1s were assigned to bids that partially fulfilled the requirement. 2s indicated satisfying our requirement as stated. 3s were assigned to bids that substantially exceeded the requirement. So an example there is we asked for 3 inch and 3/4 discharges on the truck. 1 truck actually gave us another one. And so that got that truck a 3. So to complete the scoring, what we did is we multiply these 2 sets of scores. The scores by the weights and summed across 121 items, and this will give us a final score for each proposal. And I will also note here that the scoring that we use is somewhat arbitrary, but it's going to be robust to any linear transformation that you can think of. Now let's talk about the results. So next slide, please. So if we look at the top 2 lines, the top line here is the raw score. So the Smeal truck accumulated 514 points, the HME 533, the Toyin 543, and the Rosenbauer had the highest raw score of 569 points. If I normalize this, I set Rosenbauer to 100, and then we can ask, what fraction of the Rosenbauer points did the other trucks get? You'll see that Smeal got 90% of Rosenbauer's total, HME 94%, and Toyin 95%. You'll see that there is a gap here at the top with Rosenbauer, but all the trucks are clustered above 90. And part of the reason for that is because, like I said before, we hammered hard on these salespeople to make these trucks as similar as possible. Now, if we go to the dollars, you can see the gross bids there. So the gross bids
Nick?
I do. Thanks for the presentation. This is really interesting to me. How is it? Well, I'm surprised in many respects, as we all are, as how much the cost of these things has jumped up in a short time. But how is Rosenbauer just trying to be much more aggressive in the market? Because I mean, they're excellent equipment. We use them a lot in the West, and they're, in my opinion, second to none. But what's the factors that get them into that price range? This is very interesting to me.
I would say your surmise is correct. They're very aggressive to put some equipment in Vermont, and I believe that's the key driving factor here, or one of the key driving factors for sure.
Yeah, but they're excellent machines. I've never heard a complaint about any one of them, and in fact, I know more than one agency that I work with. Once they buy one, they buy many.
Yeah, the other factor, Nick, being that is Vermont for many, many years was pretty much sewn up by one or two vendors.
Okay.
That has been busted open in the last 6 to 8 years by multiple vendors coming into Vermont and selling equipment. So it's made it a little more competitive, even though the numbers don't indicate that as much as they've gone up, but it is much more competitive.
Well, it's an excellent process, you guys. This is the second time we've seen it used, and it's even more refined than the last time. So I'm very impressed with what you've done. Thank you.
Rod?
Yeah, I got a quick question, Dave. Is there a trade-in value for the old truck, or what's going to happen to that?
There is some trade-in value, and based on what tonight's results will be, we'll advertise that truck immediately and lock in a date that'll be available for purchase. And by having that advantage, we should be able to do fairly well with that. And fairly well is not a lot of money, but it's something, yes. There is a market for a used engine, unlike a untested aerial.
But this company doesn't offer any trade-in value?
No, there was only one that did offer, and it...
No, it was Rosenbauer.
It was Rosenbauer that did offer it?
Yeah, it's not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think it was like $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd probably get some college fraternity to buy it for that.
I was thinking about a local equipment company.
Any other questions?
Just wondering, what's the lifetime on this? What do we expect?
Yes, we're expecting to get 25 years out of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
NFPA recommends 20 years. We start the process in its 21st year, and it usually takes a couple of years. So we'll be in its 24th or 25th year by the time this is seen its life cycle.
And maintenance, do we know what we expect to pay a year to maintain it, or repairs?
So on newer vehicles, there's a warranty period, of course. We will take full advantage of that. The nearest dealer is Connecticut, Rhode Island,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Yep, which is
the Albany area.
Yeah, or the Albany area. And I can't tell you what the annual maintenance would be. I certainly could tell you what our existing fleet would be, but I can't tell you what it would be on this particular fleet.
But the first 2 years would be covered under warranty.
Yes. That's correct. Thank you. If you wanted to just take a moment and look at the wheeled equipment fund, this is where the funds are coming from. Engine 1, the engine we're replacing, was the first piece of equipment that was purchased with this fund. This fund is probably the best thing the town has ever done. It makes us, it gives us the ability to plan for these purchases. It also gives us the opportunity to save for these purchases, and also gives us the opportunities to reap the rewards of paying in cash. I think over its lifetime, we've saved close to $100,000 by paying for these vehicles in advance. So it's a very stable form of replacement, and my best guesstimates are there in front of you. If you told me that in 2035 an engine is going to cost you $850,000, I might say that you're crazy, but I might be spot on.
Nick, did you have something?
No, well, with the life expectancy, one of the things we're finding, Rosenbauer actually is actually an Austrian company, and when they've acquired companies in the U.S. and around the rest of the world, they're incredibly high quality, and they tend to build for a 25-plus year life expectancy. So I think what the chief has indicated of 25 is a very reasonable number, and wouldn't be surprised if we don't get more out of it. They have that Austrian quality about them, and we certainly see that with some of the agencies I work with in the West.
I'm wondering, Chief, I mean, you set so many parameters and all the screening and everything. The ones you screen, the engine you're replacing, where in that category would that have been? Would it have even made the cut?
Oh, our current engine?
Right.
Yeah, certainly not. The fire service has changed that much in 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't even have considered engine 1 now, for sure.
So it just makes me think that the expectation should be that if we're moving from a Hugo to a Mercedes, that we should get some extra lifespan out of it, right?
We would expect that. We expected that out of engine 1 when we replaced it back then as well, and I believe we did. I mean, that truck's done a wonderful truck.
Yeah.
But its time has come for sure.
I think over the time we probably are moving up in the world.
Yeah, I would like to think so, Brian. Yes.
Yeah. But the only concern I have before I give it over to the board is that I read the infrastructure committee meetings, and you weren't quite prepared for the 13th to get their support. I usually like on something this major to have a recommendation coming forth from the committee. What's the time requirements? Could this go back to the committee just to get the infrastructure hack on it, or is there a need to get a decision right now?
So we're requesting a decision right now based on the build time. The last thing we want to do is receive this truck in the winter. Receive an engine in the winter just makes no sense. We can't train with it. We can't properly get used to it. I would be hesitant to make it a frontline truck until spring game, just because we don't have enough time to get current with the vehicle. That's why we're here now. We did go from front of the infrastructure committee twice. The second time we were still working on pricing. We felt we could have the dealers drill down their price even more, and we wanted to take that time to make that happen. And so when we presented to the infrastructure committee, we presented without the price.
When would you get it now?
When would we get what, right?
If we were to put an order in now, when would you actually receive the engine?
Late August.
335.
335 days.
Okay. That's a little better than the ladder truck, though.
Yeah, yeah.
335 days to get a truck?
Yes.
It's custom made.
Yep.
custom made very slowly.
Well, yeah, but we're not the only ones buying fire trucks, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and that's down. We've talked to vendors that had 400 and over 400 days.
I guess it takes a long time for two guys to build a fire truck, so. So Heather, you're the chair of that committee. What do you think?
So I'm on board with Brian, and that it's nice if these things can go through the committee and have a chance to look at it. But given the time frame, I do understand the chief's point. We're also, they go through such an excellent process, this committee, and evaluating what they need and rating it and doing that rating without looking at price. Ideally would go to the infrastructure, but I'm on board with sending it through tonight if the rest of the board is.
There's a number 1 above the Q&A. Is that a question?
Yep. Yes, I think we kind of already answered it, but from Karen Non-Fahey, did the existing engine 1 last as long as expected?
Okay. I think it exceeded by a couple of years, right?
Correct.
24 years.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I would just echo what Heather's saying. As somebody else who's on infrastructure, I feel comfortable moving forward with this tonight. A lot of the specialized equipment, it's not like we're going to get 25 other vendors, and this process has been amazing to see, and I feel confident that we've got the right thing for the town. So I feel comfortable doing that.
When do we pay for this? Is there a deposit and you make monthly payments, or?
They're offering a discount based on cash up front.
Oh, so we pay immediately?
Yeah, so we require a performance bond. A bond is purchased for the performance and guaranteeing that the truck will be built and built on time. And if something happens to the manufacturer, that the town's money is secured and will be returned.
And I guess I had one question just for Kathleen, given the state of things and COVID, you don't have any qualms about, the financial situation of the town if we move forward on this at all, I'm assuming.
Well, there's a 2-part answer. Yes, I have concerns about the financial, but we do have this money on deposit available for expenditure.
These funds are segregated, Lindsay.
Right. No, I'm aware. I'm aware that this is separate.
Okay. If there are no other questions, pleasure of the board.
I know that the fire department has done a very good job of this. I appreciate the input both from Heather and Lindsay. That's comforting to have the additional information. So therefore, with that, I move to approve the purchase of a custom engine pumper from Rosenbauer, South Dakota, to replace engine 1 at a not to exceed cost of $656,247.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor with a thumbs up? All right. Hey, good work, you guys. That's kind of impressive. It's tough to stay anything but attaboy when the one that had the highest rating also comes in the cheapest. Although I know you threw out all of the low qualities, but we want something that's going to last us for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. If I just may steal a moment of your time, recently the fire department received an AFG grant, COVID-19 related, for some face piece adapters to protect our members from COVID-19. That grant was for $2,695 with a town share of $128. I'd like to thank Captain Leroy Graham and Assistant Chief Patshaw for spearheading that. We still have 2 other grants out there, and haven't heard anything on them at this time, which is good news.
With all this select board support, you might be asked to forego a year's 2% when we start looking at the budget this coming year. Hopefully you guys will support us in return.
Silence.
I know.
You guys have already voted, right?
Just so you know, our tax dollars are not coming in as robustly, and there's a lot of other concerns, but it's early to tell yet. But make sure you go out to eat, go see all the local vendors. Maybe stay overnight at one of the hotels. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good night.
Thanks.
So next, Dan will be joining us.
And will be joining us. He has been having some difficulty with his internet.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you see me?
No. Yeah.
All right, hang on.
Dan, if you're having trouble with your internet, you may want to leave your video off. Sometimes that helps.
Okay. How's that? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, internet been down, cell phone didn't work. I'm now on my iPad on another remote thing. So here we go. Okay. The first item is the Court Street sidewalk bid. This was a little project there across from the high school at Charles Avenue and Court Street. The board wanted to do something about the water running down the curb line and the sidewalk down to the Vaucher residence. So I put this out to bid. We got one bid back. It was from Avery Construction out of Williamstown. Their proposal was $29,000 for that 160-foot section. Plus, it also included a piece up there by Monroe Street. So I did a little checking from last year's work, and it's just totally out of line. It's about triple the cost of what we've done in other areas. So discussed it at the infrastructure committee meeting and decided that we should just reject that bid. So the first item, I'm asking the board to rebid or to reject Avery Construction's bid of $29,000, and then we'll rebid it in the wintertime.
So I'll move to reject the Avery Construction bid of $29,000 for the Court Street sidewalk project and rebid the work this winter.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay.
All right. Next item is 8B. It's the recommendation of the crosswalk at Court Street and Mary Hogan North. We discussed at the committee whether we should retain that crosswalk. It's the one with the flashing beacon light at Mary Hogan. I'm not sure if Kathleen, if you have the ortho photo of that, but I'm sure we're all aware of it. It's a tough spot because you have the intersection, people making left-hand turns in and out, right-hand turns going north. It's very close to the Cross Street intersection. There are cars coming in and out of Dunkin' Donuts and out of the Champlain Valley or Champlain gas station. So it's a tough spot. So we discussed at the committee whether to retain that or not, and the committee decided to send it to the board with a recommendation that we not retain that crosswalk. So the state wants a reply from us by September 2nd on what our wishes are. And in between the committee meeting and tonight, I asked the state about whether they would put up or fund the no right turn sign. That's the illuminated one. There's one down there about Charles and Monroe. They came back and said that they would do that. So basically what would amount to is at Cross Street and Court Street, when a pedestrian phase is called, for instance, to cross Cross Street, then there would be no traffic being allowed to turn from Court Street. There would be a no right turn on red, and then the phase for the left-hand turn from northbound would also be eliminated. For Court Street, if someone wants to cross Court Street, then the only thing that we could do is maintain a right-hand turn for people going south off of Cross Street. But there would be no left-hand turn from Cross Street going north. In other words, any pattern that would allow a conflict with a pedestrian in that crosswalk would be eliminated. So that's kind of the plan. And so I guess it's up for you for discussion and approval if you wish.
Comments on that? I know it was discussed at the infrastructure committee meeting, and this is the plan that they seem to come up with.
So the only thing I wanted to ask Kathleen about was, you know how when we change a stop sign, or I don't know if Chief Hanley is still on, we have to go through some kind of public notice process. Do we have to do something similar here with the removal of a sidewalk, or are the regulations different?
Ann can chime in, but the stop signs are set by ordinance and the crosswalk is not.
Okay. And so the only thing that we really haven't done is maybe gotten some public input on it. You know, we didn't have many, you know, members of the public at the infrastructure committee. So is the board interested in hearing more from the public on this? That doesn't give us much time if we have to get an answer to V-Trans by the second.
What was the date you had to get it by?
I think Dan said the second.
September 2nd.
Second, okay. Yeah, that doesn't leave us any time for a year.
What happens if we don't get our information in by the 2nd?
Well, it would just be, well, you don't lose out on it, on anything. They have a final set of plans that they want to give to the contractor. And so right now it's going through the V-Trans review process, and they want all comments by the 2nd. So basically what it amounts to is I can tell them, yeah, we don't know yet. And they can just have it as a delete item in the bid process. You know, so in other words, delete some things at that crosswalk and or add-ons. It just makes it a little more complicated. They want to try to nail down the pricing on what they're going to do there. So
I did have
Ask
a
them
thought.
for a week extension, Dan?
I can. I can.
The committee did support Dan's recommendation to remove the crosswalk. So, so I think, you know, it's up to the board.
I read that the crosswalk is a very awkward crosswalk because you're up to speed in between lights, and all of a sudden, and you don't see because there's so much activity, just like was discussed at that committee meeting with the people coming in. You're looking for people coming in and out of Dunkin' Donuts and whatnot, and it's not that far down from the other crosswalk. Dan?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about for Court Street and Cross Street, the lights is great. I'm removing something that's already there, that's supposedly there for a safety item, concerns me. But I also have the impression that when I drive by there, it's really a free for all. I have more people. I see more people crossing in front of Dunkin' Donuts than I do in this crosswalk, and they're coming across there all the time. Literally, probably 4 or 5 times more people than are in that crosswalk. And I've also seen people stand in that crosswalk trying to wait for 20 cars to go by. Those flashing yellow lights just mean go through and don't do anything. They're not doing anything. So I understand the confusion there, but getting rid of it's not going to make anything better. Except I guess with traffic flow, and I've read everything you've said, but are we giving up on something right now that we could fix? I just don't know to vote yes or no on this. So
Yeah, could I
Please, Lindsay.
go? Thank you. So I did vote to send this to us in infrastructure, and I had thoughts percolating in my head that didn't amount to anything solid that I could come up with. But I really appreciated Dorothy Mammon's letter about the way that pedestrians will wind up using the street, and I think we should, I guess what I'm in favor of, to cut to the chase, is having a little bit of time, asking for a little bit of an extension, and seeing if we can get some feedback from people who do walk in that area. I will say, as a, again, as a parent, I often think about where my kids can cross, where they're not going to be having to go past a lot of businesses, where cars might be turning and they're not paying attention. And I do think that crosswalk, because you can come up Mary Hogan and cross, and then there aren't as many businesses on that side as some other areas. And I also think if we're going to do this and make that main intersection be where people are crossing, I'm wondering if there's a possibility for just a full stop on traffic, at least during school hours, like when schools are going in and when schools are leaving. Because again, coming from Mary Hogan, there are smaller kids that will walk to the library, 3rd, 4th graders. And a sign is good, but a full stop would be better. But I don't know if we can even do that, if that's something that can happen or not.
Yeah, let me answer that. So while I was trying to describe what was going on, I was dealing with trying to get reconnected here. So yes, we would have, for the Cross Street and Court Street intersection, we would have a full stop for any, in other words, there would be no concurrent left-hand turn movements like there are now. So anyone crossing Cross Street would not be in conflict with someone coming off of Court Street making a left-hand turn. Similarly, on crossing Court Street, there would not be a left-hand turn coming out of Cross Street. So in other words, there would be no conflict. And that seems to be the bugaboo that a lot of people are worried about. It's that concurrent pedestrian phase with traffic movement. So those would be either red lights or red arrows for those movements. I read Dorothy's letter too, and I understand where she's coming from, but one of the problems with the rapid flashing beacon lights is it becomes an on-demand intersection or on-demand stop traffic. And so when you're coming out of the intersection of Cross and Court and heading north, you're coming around the corner from Cross Street, you're accelerating. Oh my gosh, there's no warning. There's a rapid flashing, and the brakes go on. So it's a conditional thing. If I was going to go to the rec park and I could go to a rapid flashing beacon light, I'd do it because I know I could stop traffic and I wouldn't want to wait. And so what happens is you condition people for that instant satisfaction instead of using or actually a more safer crosswalk, crossing, which would be the signal. So, it's a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's just that the signalized intersection would be a safer crossing, and then the school kids would actually use it. I think people get used to it.
Dan, you're saying they would signalize that intersection coming out coming out of the rec park?
No, I'm saying is you would use the signalized intersection, pedestrian phase at Cross and Court Street. A true stop traffic is far safer than any other type of crossing, including rapid flashing beacons.
So you're moving the crosswalk.
Yeah, well, you eliminate the crosswalk at Mary Hogan, and you're having people use the signalized, intersection of Cross and Court.
I had another question for Dan.
Go ahead.
Are the cross signals ours or the state's? Like the lights?
They are ours.
They're ours, okay. Because my other thought was trying to spend our money. Can we get the ones that count down the time? Because I do think that people are more likely to use it if they see there's a 30-second countdown and they just have to stand there versus, being impatient, as you're saying.
Yeah, what do you mean by a countdown?
You know how some crosswalks will count down like 30 seconds? Like when you push the button?
Right.
It'll count down the amount of time that you're standing there.
Okay.
So that you know that the traffic's going to stop. If they're ours, we're not going to buy these. It's fine. I was hoping somebody else would pay for it.
Yeah. So part of the signalization upgrades with this Class 1 paving process is going to be, and actually they're there now already, the radar units, and they're much more effective at picking up pedestrians and cyclists and so on and so forth than the loop detectors that have been there. So that's an improvement. And the controllers at all the intersections in our system and the ones down on the state system further south are all going to be upgraded with the Class 1 paving grant at no cost to us. So.
Do we know, I'm sorry, just one more question. Do we know when you hit the button to cross there, what is the wait time to stop all traffic?
Yeah, it depends on when you push the button in relationship to the phases that the intersection goes through. So that's why you may hear some people say, "Oh, I stood there forever," and then other people, it happens pretty quickly. So as the signal goes through its phases, it depends on when you are hitting that push button as where that phase cycle is as to how soon it picks it up. And it's just, it's random by your timing when you push the button. But the phase comes at the same time in the pedestrian phase would come at the same time in the rotation. So there is a pattern, just when you activate it to get in that pattern.
And I had one more question. I
Sure.
promise this is it. I know we've talked a lot about how the pedestrian crossings can sort of throw a wrench in that traffic flowing, between Hannaford and through town. Is this going to add to the problem?
You mean by it would add a little bit maybe at that intersection, because you'll have more traffic stopped, but then you won't have the situation at Mary Hogan intersection when somebody pushes a button, and stops traffic. So do you take less people away crossing at Mary Hogan? You have more people crossing at Cross Street? Hard to say.
Brian, there are some Q&As. Karen Nonfahey is actually Laura Asermoli, and she has some questions and comments here. Do you want me to read them out loud, or can the board see them? Dan, can you see them?
Why don't you read them so that those that are watching on TV can also hear?
Okay. So the first one is, can we fix the timing of the lights at Court and Cross so pedestrians are not waiting, in addition to limiting turns? I think we may have just answered that, Dan, in that the phase for pedestrian comes at the same point in the cycle, no matter when the button is pushed.
Correct.
So I think the question is there any adjustment available to that? My guess is no, but you should answer that.
Well, what would happen with this new situation is when someone pushes a button and they get the walk signal, you get so many seconds of the white hand, and then it goes to orange and starts counting down. And that the orange signal is to, or hand is to let people to know to not start to cross. Those that are already crossing have the number of seconds that are on the display to get to the other side. But traffic would not be given a green light until that pedestrian phase is completely over. So you are protected all the way over, all the way over to the other side. The pedestrian phase, orange phase, times out. Then there's usually a few second delay, and then the traffic would be given a green arrow or a green light, depending on the situation. So it'd be a complete protected pedestrian phase. Right now, it's concurrent.
So it looks like Laura's actually asking if like the pedestrian signal can be given priority in the phasing. That's how I'm kind of interpreting her question.
Well, it's always given priority when it's pushed. So
okay,
I'm not aware of any logic that can say once the pedestrian button is pushed, it comes in automatically. It just it has to go through a cycle and pick up that pedestrian phase. So that's how those controllers keep things in order.
Okay. So her next question is, can we retain the crosswalk at Mary Hogan North and replace the overhead flashers with the, I think that's rapid flashing beacon lights, like on Cross Street, Water Street? I think we've kind of already answered that one also in the course of the discussion. Her next question is, could we align the crosswalk better with Dunkin' Donuts?
I would say that is the absolutely wrong thing to do. A mid-block crosswalks are never very safe, and that would make it worse, I think. People would be coming out of Mary Hogan and accelerating, and oh my gosh, there's a pedestrian there.
And then her last comment was, crosswalk safety flags are heavily used at this crossing, indicating frequent use. So that's a comment.
Yep.
That's all I see. There's a hand up also, but it's also, I think, for Laura. So, so I think we've answered the question she had submitted.
Okay. Nick?
As one who walks that intersection quite frequently, it's part of Diane and my evening walk routine. That Mary Hogan Drive signal is a train wreck. In fact, I think the only people who routinely will stop there are the truckers who are traveling through who see it. I understand why it was put there in the first place, but it's not working the way it was intended. So I think this is a real good idea for what you're proposing. Especially like basically which I've heard referred to as a pedestrian scramble, where the intersection is the pedestrians. Is there a reason why, well, there's not as much traffic, there's not a no turn on red sign proposed for southbound Court Street turning onto Cross Street?
That's what I asked the state for, if they would provide that, and they have come back recently and said that they would.
Okay, good. So it is a complete traffic shutdown, so that achieves the objective,
right?
Which then also allows a 45-degree crossing of the intersection. So, and Lindsay, it sounds like Dan actually answered the question you had about the countdown type of crosswalk indicators, where it goes from the white to the red with the countdown on it. So that's
right. Yeah, I haven't used that light as a pedestrian in quite some time, so I couldn't remember what it looked like.
So Lindsay, it sounded like you were actually looking for the ones that let the pedestrian know when their crossing is going to come on, not how much time did they have to cross.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry if I was, I need more coffee tonight, guys.
I have some right
sorry
here.
If my questions are backwards. Yeah, I was looking for, some of them have an indicator for how long you're going to have to wait before it's your turn to go.
Okay.
And I think that those help pedestrians utilize the right place instead of, as Dorothy was saying in her letter, deciding to jaywalk somewhere.
Yeah, and even with that present flashing light at Mary Hogan Drive, I always feel like I'm jaywalking there anyway, because it's just a pretty ignored item. So no, I think this is well thought out. Appreciate the input, Heather, that you gave on the infrastructure committee. So this seems like a very logical and sensible thing to proceed with.
Are we ready to do something on this?
So I'll make a motion to approve DPW Planning Director Dan Warner, sorry, am I on the wrong one? Nope, okay, sorry. I move to authorize DPW Planning Director Dan Warner to convey the following request to V-Trans on behalf of the Select Board regarding desired pedestrian safety improvements on Court Street. 1, remove the crosswalk at the Mary Hogan North entrance. 2, install a no right turn on red sign at the Court Street Cross Street intersection for southbound Court Street traffic, and adjust the traffic signal at Court Street and Cross Street to stop all traffic during the pedestrian phase.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments?
So Dan, we're gonna do a no right on red for both Cross to Court southbound and then Court to Cross westbound, right? We need 2 no right on red signs.
You would.
So people heading south on Court Street turning right onto Cross Street would also have a no turn on right?
Correct.
Okay, so we're getting 2 of those.
And then at Cross Street, turning right onto
Court Street.
To Court Street would be a red signal, and I'll talk that over.
Okay.
It'll be a red signal, and
so there's not a need for a red arrow there. They're just going to have a red signal.
Yeah, I'll talk it over with the engineers. We're going to make sure that we get it spot on. But the intent is to have no traffic crossing there, concurrent with a pedestrian.
Yeah, so I don't know how the rest of the board knows, but if a pedestrian calls for a signal down at the Hannaford Walgreens intersection, that becomes a complete, traffic stop there, and it seems to work fine. And then the times I've gone through there where that's happened, I do still see some people turning right into the Hannaford Plaza southbound when there's a no turn signal there, but they usually still come to a stop and look. So hopefully it works and people follow what they're supposed to.
And I have one more question, I'm sorry. What is our process for how we communicate these changes to the public and also to Mary Hogan School or any of the schools?
Well, we had Eric come in. He's I forgot his last name. Eric
Remsen, right?
Remsen, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
He works at the school. He's also their Safe Routes to School coordinator, and he didn't have a lot of issues with getting rid of that crosswalk at Mary Hogan, and felt that education would be great for the kids on how to use the cross and court signal and to not have them cut through the hair salon property. So we can use him to make sure that we communicate it to the schools too. Safe Routes people.
Brian, Fred Dunnington has his hands up in the attendees section.
Okay. Fred?
Thank you. I would just say that the yellow arm lights that are out there were what we had, the best we had before the advent of these great rapid flashing beacons. And I agree with all of the things you're talking about with respect to Cross Street and Court Street. But pedestrian safety shouldn't be a zero-sum game with a broader view on Court Street. We already have a similar situation where the crosswalk is closed between the Middlebury Inn and the Congregational Church. People use these crosswalks, so make them safer. Make each one of them safer. So it's great that you're doing this at Cross and Court Street, but make the Mary Hogan one safer too. People are going to use it. If they don't use it, they'll jaywalk, and we had a fatality there. So, the notion that it's going to slow up more traffic it is true that the bigger picture, as Dan stated to the committee, it's really important to keep traffic flowing on Court Street. And right now we're seeing a lot more traffic on Court Street because Main Street is closed because of the Bridge Tunnel project. You could improve traffic flow on Court Street by correcting the jog offset at Main Street, at Monroe Street and Cross Street. Excuse me, Monroe and Charles. And that's a significant improvement in flow because traffic only moves if there's an ability for it to exit. And also traffic exiting from the high school. If you had 2 lanes exiting for the same green time, you would greatly improve that amount of flow. So looking at the bigger picture is important. The last thing I would say is that I hope in all of this Court Street marking with crosswalks and so forth, you also provide for bicycle safety. The lanes are much wider up at the head of Court Street, I mean at the top of the hill by Creek Road, than they are even in front of Rosie's. So leave some space for bikes. Now don't put the edge line right at the drainage basins. Thank you for all you're doing. Sorry I'm taking time to extend your meeting. Good luck to you all.
Brian, I just want to add something to what Fred said. We the white edge lines are definitely going to come away from the curb from Creek Road going north. Of course, as you get to Cross Street, it's going to be narrow because there's 3 lanes there, but they are going to come in. That's already on the plans.
Good.
Brian, sorry, Lindsay. Laura just made a comment in the Q&A that says strongly agree with all that Fred said.
Okay. Lindsay?
I had one more question. I'm sorry. If we go through with this and we find that people are crossing in the middle of the block instead of going down to one of the crosswalks, how hard is it to put the crosswalk back?
You would have to report a sidewalk, put in the the handicap panels on both sides, and then paint it. So this is a side note to all of this. The curb line on Court Street from Mary Hogan north, going north, is going to have to move, and that'll be a town cost thing as for next summer. There's 4 catch basins in a row where back in the 1970s, we think that those curb lines were poured about in the middle of the catch basin, so you cannot clean them out. I've asked the state to, accept that somebody messed up in 1977, and they're like, no, sorry, we can't pay for that. You are. So anyway, that would be a cost to us that'll be coming to the committee at some point in the future. But regardless, that curb line is going to move and it's going to be dug out anyway. So just as a side note to when Lindsay, you were talking about, are you going to, what's it take to put it back? So we'll have until, none of this changes until next summer.
So if we make this recommendation and there's large community pushback when it becomes known that we've approved this, we can go back to them and say we'd rather keep it in?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm still uncomfortable, and I'm just uncomfortable taking away a crosswalk that's been there for a long time, and there's people that use it, and the people are abusing it significantly out of Dunkin' Donuts, and I just don't think it's going to get. I don't think people are going to go the 100 feet to the left and cross the street. They're just not going to do it. So I'm just uncomfortable with taking something away instead of trying to improve it. I would feel. I normally, in this case, I think there's a lot of users out there that use that area all the time, and I'd really like to know what they think, the users. I've crossed there maybe 10 times since I've lived here, so I'm not a user. I'm just uncomfortable taking away a crosswalk. But
Hey, Dan, can we tell them that we're leaning this way, but it would be nice, especially once the school's in session, to get an idea how many people actually use this crosswalk, so we have some numbers. I don't know how hard that is to get.
Well, I guess I could suggest to them that, you know, we can tell them that we're, I guess they can write it into the contract that it's going to come out, but then they have the language for, you know, delete or add in, just so they have some pricing that they can use. What they don't want to have is you know, going down a path and then going back to having to negotiate with a contractor on what these costs are going to be. It just leaves it open to you know, not a good situation.
Yeah.
So it's always better to have a position and then have the language that allows you to get to change it.
Nick?
Actually, the odd duck in there is and why the main reason for having to even cross there is to get over from the east side of Court Street over to Dunkin' Donuts. The actual flow, the logical flow, is really at the two existing crosswalks on either end of that block, because that takes it onto a sidewalk that then allows continuation to your destination on either over Cross Street or over up by the inn. So by doing this, you're really directing people toward the logical flow. And in fact, most people do that anyway. So it's just that one specific business that is the reason why people are even crossing there. Otherwise, there's no need to.
Well, Nick, that's a good point, and that's exactly what when we had John Kaplan out here, he's the state bike ped person. You know, the engineers and myself and John were out there, and we're looking at this, and he's going like, "Well, why do people cross here? You know, there's no other destination other than to get to the other side. You know, if you're coming from downtown, you're up at Court Square. If you're coming from Cross Street Bridge, you're crossing at Cross and Court Street. You know, why would people go mid-block and cross the street when they were already at an intersection so they could cross that?" So he kind of was like, you know, from a, you know, logistical thing, he didn't understand why that crosswalk was there. So.
Might I suggest to move things on, if it's okay with the board, that we would support this, but that we hold ourselves accountable to review this again before it's too late to make the change in the bid, based upon the recommendation of a traffic professional and our director of public works.
I would feel comfortable with it as long as it's in the motion that says, you know, that we'll support this, but we're going to, what you just said about having traffic engineers and safety engineers and having public input, that we have the opportunity to change it. Otherwise, I can't support it.
So did you want to make a friendly amendment to my motion, Dan?
Yeah, I think along the lines of what Brian just said, that you know, it can support this to the state, but then we need to have some flexibility in there that says that we can change our minds, and we should probably be, I don't know if we can talk to traffic engineers or safety engineers, or we've already done that, and be attuned to public input on that.
So like Dan just mentioned, it's John Kaplan, right, Dan? He's the state's bike ped. He's
Right.
a safety engineer, isn't he?
Well, I'm not sure what his professional qualifications are, but he is a state bike ped person. And I think what Dan's asking is, when we address a letter to the state, that if we say, yes, we would like to, you know, delete this crosswalk, but we want to have the capability to, or that they need to write in the contract, would be a delete action or an add action. So we're not, the state isn't caught without a place to negotiate with a contractor. So in other words, we can change our minds, but there's still an avenue for the state to change their contract with the successful bidder.
So they need to include in their contract that this could be a potential add to the contract to put it back in if we changed our mind.
Well, if you decide that you want to delete this crosswalk, it will be written into the contract that those mast arms will come down. We have curbing issues to fix, so the town is going to take that curbing out and the crosswalk approach anyway, because it has to be redone. So we would, in the state's contract, they would write in that those mast arms be removed and unpowered and so on and so forth. In the meantime, if you decide that you don't want to do that, they would add it as a delete to the contract. In other words, they would tell the contractor, do not remove those mast arms, and they stay.
So I think the mast arm should come out. Anyway.
That's what, if you vote to approve removal of the intersection, they will write in the contract to remove those mast arms, and they will become property of the town, because we're gonna retain them.
So if we decided to put to leave that crosswalk there at a later time, I still think that the mast arm should come down.
Agree.
So, and then if we decided to leave that intersection there, the mast arms would come down, and we'd want to consider some other type of signaling device at that intersection. So, or at that crosswalk, if we decided that we wanted it to go back. So, so I don't think they need to have a delete item in there for the mast arms. I think we can tell them, go ahead and take the mast arms down. And then, so my understanding from what you just said is the curbing and sidewalk part would be on the town's dollar anyway because of the realignment with the curbing. Correct. So there really isn't anything else in the state's contract with the contractor that we need to be concerned about.
Correct. Mostly correct. If you choose to do rapid flashing beacon lights, then that would have to be written into this contract.
Okay. So maybe what we need is an what do they call it? Drawing a blank when there's a potential add in a contract.
A change order.
No, not a change order.
Add alternate.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. An add alternate for rapid flashing beacons there, and leave the delete for the mast arms in the contract.
Yep.
Comfortable with that.
That way you protect the state. You protect the town's position for the state to fund rapid flashing beacons if you choose.
Okay.
So that changes. I think we should vote down the initial motion because it's kind of a different motion.
Mm-hmm.
And then